So let's move on to Miss Cynthia Ritchi. You have had an amazing experience in Pakistan. You are very familiar with Pakistani culture, our education system, our politics. And coming from the US, what is your definition of positive social change? And how do you think that organizations can incorporate positive social change into its mission to impact society?
Well, thank you, Namal, and thank you everyone for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you okay.
Being an American and sort of observing what's been taking place in America remotely on and off for a number of years, I often feel like I don't have much room to say anything about using America as a guiding light or a bastion or an example of how to do things well right now, because I think, frankly, our country is in such a what appears to be such a systemic decline in terms of communications, toxic cultures from our government. I watch the Senate members, I watch congressional House members from the Republican side to the Democratic side hurling abuses at one another. Both sides are accusing the other of being a part of a cult. It's just a really toxic environment, online, social media, as well as traditional media. And for me, that's most unfortunate. So, but there was a time, and I do have faith and belief in the American people, even if I have some issues with America's foreign policy, particularly as it relates to Pakistan. I do have a faith in a belief system, a belief in inherently the people. And there are really great companies in the United States that have a phenomenal corporate culture that I would like to see basically take place here in Pakistan. I think the West has a lot to offer if we can sort of get beyond this toxic communications culture that's seems to be fostered on at a global level. Which is, it's almost like the end of times in terms of healthy communications and corporate communications in a micro level and a macro level. So I would simply say that leadership should lead by example. And whether one is online or in person, an individual's personality, wherever practically possible, should shine through. And very simply, leaders should lead by example. People will do what you do. They won't do what you say, but they will do what you do. And I think that it's up to everyone to sort of exhibit the behaviors that they wish to see in society.
Definitely, that is huge. And you mentioned that social media, it can be influential on society in both positive and negative way. So what are the impacts of social media on youth, especially these days? And how can we use social media for a more positive social change in society?
Think, since we're in Pakistan and we're talking about social media, we can just sort of limit it to Pakistani Twitter, let's say, or Pakistani Facebook. First of all, I wish that Pakistan would adjust its policies to where we would have a Twitter office here in Pakistan, because we are basically reliant upon Twitter India, and Twitter India has a huge impact in terms of unfairly censoring many Pakistani accounts, particularly those who are advocates for Kashmir's right to self-determination. And relying upon a foreign government to regulate and control your own social media audience, to me, is just beyond the realms of ludicrousness. So it's incumbent upon the Pakistani government, the GOP, to work with Twitter where it's practically possible, to ensure that we have a partnership here in Pakistan, so that Pakistan's online communications can grow and flourish organically in a healthy manner that is befitting the state of Pakistan, not what's befitting the state of India.
That's true. That's true. And so what could we do with our youth? Because obviously they don't have the technical skills to start something like this. What could we possibly do to empower our youth, or to start our own platform, or simply educate them to start something different?
Simply, there's so many amazing people here in Pakistan. Unfortunately, some tend to want to run before they can learn to walk properly. And I think that if we just start with the basics, just social media etiquette, basic
Mm.
etiquette, what's acceptable, what's appropriate, speaking from as a Pakistani to another Pakistani, or maybe what's acceptable and appropriate, what are unique cultures that are inherent to the Baloch people, what are unique cultures and things that are inherent to the Sindhi people, to the Punjabi people, to the Pakhtun, to the Gilgit-Baltistan. There are many diverse cultures here in Pakistan, and I think from a Pakistani to a Pakistani perspective, that each of those cultures can take the lead in terms of what are the subtle nuances that are appropriate as it relates to the cultures interacting with one another within Pakistan. And then separately, what's acceptable for Pakistanis interacting with Westerners and vice versa. What's considered rude, what's considered polite, basic dynamics, basic social media etiquette, and to understand and to encourage diversity of opinion, and to say that we can disagree without being disagreeable. Not everything has to be a topi drama. Not everything has to be, everyone has to get, emotionally reactive and volatile, because when emotions get in the way, we tend to think about things less rationally. And if we're going to have constructive dialogue, if we're going to have constructive criticism with the aim of results oriented communications, then we have to set a firm, solid foundation that everyone understands. Here are the rules, here are the parameters, and if you want to participate, we welcome you. But everyone's also expected to do their fair share and abide by the rules and regulations of social media etiquette, and clearly define what social media etiquette means, and have the teachers and instructors understand it fully and also lead by example.
Definitely, I think lead by example would be one of the biggest points. We could have a group that is out there and who is promoting a lot of positive social media, um, posts and stuff like that. And people see more of that, because usually when you go on social media, you see a lot of negative posts. You see a lot of what's happening wrong, what is bad. People are bashing each other. It is like a Twitter war out there all the time. So I think if we start a new trend of maybe positive influence or positive examples, people would catch on to that. And like you said, you are
Maybe something like positive trolling. We have this endemic of trolling, where people are attacking others at below the belt, attacking people's bodies, their faces, their appearances, that have nothing to do with the price of tea in China. But if we could perhaps form a group that does positive trolling, where we say, hey guys, let's stick to the issue at hand. This is the real issue, and let's be supportive of one another in this particular way. If there could be troll farms doing negative, there could be troll farms doing positive. We might have to relabel it or frame it differently, but it is doable.
Definitely. And so moving back to the issues that United States even has. Every country has their issues. Even Pakistan politics, you go on the news, you see people bashing each other. Same with the U.S. But the U.S. is still united and is still a superpower. What are the elements that you think contributed to the citizens of the U.S. to become such a great country? And what do you feel that there obviously are positive things in every country too? What do you think that Pakistan can learn from the U.S. or their culture or the people there?
I think America has always been very good at establishing patriotism. From a very early age, we had amazing singers and songwriters, very heartfelt moments that were created by Hollywood, that established a sense of pride in all of us, or the majority of us, in terms of being Americans and what does it mean to be an American. And we have the history of individuals who came over from England who were basically sick of tyranny, and were sick of a way of life that was happening in Britain at the time, Great Britain, and they moved to the colonies because they wanted a different way of life for themselves. Now, that said, they also colonized land that belonged to the Native Americans, the indigenous people, and we've celebrated Thanksgiving for years and years and years with the idea of turkey and a big meal, and we're sharing it with the Indians and we're peace loving and so forth. When the story isn't quite that, I wasn't live back then, but the version of
Mhm.
history that we're taught in school is that, the new Americans came with peaceful ideas and wanted to live harmoniously with the indigenous people in a brave new world, when there was a lot of darkness associated with that as well, where the indigenous populations were either killed off or bullied, or they're into their lands being taken and women being raped. Many people were unfairly slaughtered. And that's something that many of us did not, that version of history was sort of hidden from us in school. So we were
Mhm.
taught a certain version of history to enhance our sense of patriotism, only to find out later that that may not have been the entire story. Right.
Yeah.
So for the good and for the not so good, the storytelling has been hugely important in crafting a narrative,
Mhm.
irrespective of how accurate that narrative is.
That's true. But like you said, a lot of like now you are aware, and a lot of the new generation, the youth, are much aware of our history, how we started, and then they wanted to get together to come to a country to live a better life. Same thing with Canada. It is very multicultural. People are there. They have left their own countries to move to a country to be united and to work together and to make sure that it works better. They can live peacefully and happily in a different country. So the youth are much more enlightened. They understand what issues were going back home. So, what can the youth do or learn in Pakistan from this, from our culture in the West?
I think one of the things that some of the good things that Westerners tend to be, I personally think that we're very good at is being very direct about if we like something or if we don't like something, and honesty, integrity, um, being very communicative in an effective, efficient way. If I don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't know, or I'm not sure, but let's find out together if I have time and circumstances permitting.
Mhm.
I think our level of being honest and direct is something that the youth, I think, are really good at here in Pakistan. The youth here are some of the most effective, efficient, energetic. They want to do something great for their country, but they're not sure who to look up to. They might use the term leader for different political folks, and then I ask them, well, what are the qualities of a leader for you? And then not many
Mhm.
people can tell me, what is a leader? Who is a leader? And then I say, oh, this person or this person. And then I say, what is it that makes that person so special to you? And they're not really taught, in my experience, these critical thinking skills in terms of thinking for themselves
Mhm.
who would be an effective, appropriate, inspiring personality for them. They just don't seem to have those skills. They want to have those skills,
Mhm.
but they don't have anyone that set that example for them. And in terms of the culture that they learn at home or in the schools, and in terms of where they're being taught, at a very early age, we're taught
Mhm.
in our schools in America, you don't steal, you don't lie, stop. Red means stop, green means go at the intersection. You look both ways before you cross the street. You yield to oncoming traffic. These are things that we are taught at a very early age, to stay in our lane and to look both ways, two or three times, to be a courteous driver. Not everyone is a courteous driver, of course. We've got a lot of troubles in our country as well, too. But
Mhm.
the point is that we are taught these things from a very early age, and that when we get to a certain age appropriate point, our skills are tested with a supervisor who's qualified to teach us, to train us, to guide us. And that's
Mhm.
not happening here in Pakistan.
So yeah, I would agree with the same. Like having a important role model, growing up is very important. Um, Mr. Farrukh Dall, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect. It's so nice to have you here with us. Relating to our topic right now, I'm going to ask you the same question again. As Cynthia was talking about how we need better role models, better education, and you are the chairman of the Read Pakistan, where you guys have started great projects with 100,000 libraries, Read Talks, Writers Club. You are really promoting education. We do have some strengths, and with rather than feeding our individuals with outdated information in this changing world, and like we said, or like Cynthia had mentioned, that we are lacking skills such as self-reflection, critical thinking, analysis, research, creativity, and maybe especially even in technology. How do you think that we can help the youth in this country develop these skills and bring a positive social change?
Thank you very much, Namal. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Uh, this is ideational factor of social change. But before
Mhm.
that, we need to understand the cyclic theory. This notion of
Mhm.
social change is that human society goes through certain cycles, looking to the cyclic changes of days and nights and of climates. Some sociologists, like Spangler, believe that society has a predetermined life cycle and has birth, growth, maturity, and decline. I'm referring this because, in addition to the point made by Cynthia, that modern society is in the last stage. It is in its old age. But since history repeats itself, society, after passing through all these stages, returns to the original stage. Whence the cycle again begins. This concept is found in Hindu mythology as it is called Sat Yuga, will again start after Kali Yuga is over. The view that change takes place in a cyclical way has been accepted by some modern thinkers also. The point is that what Spangler developed another version of cyclic theory of social change, that the history of various civilizations, including the Egyptians, Greek, and Roman, and concluded that all civilizations pass through a similar cycle of birth, maturity, and death. The Western civilization is now on its, according to Spengler, its decline, which is unavoidable. The point is that change is the law of nature. Social change occurs in all societies. No society remains completely static. Social change is natural. So, according to, there are numerous and varied causes of social change. Team Human is a book by digital theorist Douglas Rushkoff. This book is most urgent thoughts on the civilization and human nature. He argues that we are essentially social creatures and that we achieve our greatest aspirations when we work together. But number collective behavior and social movements are just two of the forces driving social change that social scientists recognize. There are numerous other changes. According to what factors the sociologists have accepted are technology, social institutions, population, and the environment. All these factors work together for a social change. All these factors are interrelated. None of these, including the political factors and the role of government, role of social organizations, role of political institutions, is always there. It works collectively. None work individually. For example, Thomas Friedman argues that technology is a driving force behind globalization, while the other forces of social change play comparatively minor role. He suggests that we can view globalization on occurring in three distinct periods. So, what your question was uh, about Pakistan, about youth of Pakistan. I believe that youth of Pakistan has enormous potential to be a great nation. Yes, there are challenges, there are issues, there are problems we face that American society doesn't face. American society has already overcome those challenges. For example, in 1880s, there was a social movement launched by Andrew Carnegie. He was the richest man on earth at that time. He started developing public libraries in America. In 1880s, he established approximately 3,000 public libraries in America. That changed and shaped the American mind. We are still unable to give access to majority of our population. Only 4% of your student population in primary schools have access to quality thoughts and quality books. You have no school libraries. You have no public libraries. Your villages are not growing because they don't have an access to new thoughts, quality thoughts. This is the major challenge we see today. Pakistan is facing because the state have never recognized the importance of books. Books are not just piece of papers. Books provide you to expand your horizon. It gives you new thoughts, new horizons, new programming. It builds new form mental associations. This is how societies grow. So the factor of social change, which I am arguing from time and again, that ideas could influence the course of social change. Ideas have influenced humankind throughout the history. The ideas transmitted through books. For them, ideational changes are important contributory factors to many or most types of social. Ideas and ideologies together are powerful motivating forces in social change. I believe that, for instance, the directive principles of in Western world, equality, liberty, justice, laid down in their constitutions, in their basic legal instruments, have not only revolutionized their societies, that it has greatly affected the relations between the members of their societies. The idea emerged from the book Black Beauty, changed the way Europeans think about animals. The ideas emerged in the book 1984, changed the way Americans think about race. So this is how those societies have developed. So social philosophers who believe in the force of ideas argued that no material or social factors can produce change unless there is also a change in ideas within society or ideas about society and nature. My point is that we need new thoughts, new ideas. We need our people to give them access to new ideas and new thoughts through books, through libraries.
Excellent. I agree with you. We do need more libraries for sure, and especially when it comes to books and villages. Now, we can provide these children books and a lot of education, but there's also then the skill set that needs to develop, especially in terms of technology. How will books help youth today in terms of this fast changing world of technology? How are they going to keep up with this?
Well, there is no any other way. I repeat, there is no any other way except books. Because books are the key factor and the key element which ensures social change in our society. Many futurists and many scholars who believe that the human development theory and the theory of ignorance hypothesis, they believe that by providing access to books, you do half of the job, because skills are not sufficient to succeed in life. You need an attitude. You need other skills, soft skills, to succeed in life, you need many other set of skills. For example, if you are a good designer, you are a good web developer. Okay, you are expert in uh, 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 artificial intelligence, but you don't have a good attitude. You don't have emotional intelligence. You will fail in your life because of your attitude, because of your inability to face the challenges. What books do? Books expand your horizons. Books gives you new thoughts, new ideas, new programs. It softens a book softens your mind. Book, for example, if when you are reading Dale Carnegie, I guarantee that you will not be the same person after reading Dale Carnegie. If you are
Yeah.
reading Wayne W. Dyer, your conception about yourself will change, entirely change. When you are
Yeah.
reading Brian Tracy,
Your level of consciousness definitely rises with these kind of books, and it does help you um, able to think a little bit more for yourself. Now, the most important thing is having access to these kind of books, and even just having the knowledge, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people in Pakistan who don't even know who Dale Carnegie is. How can we promote these kind of books, first of all? And how can we get our youth to be interested in this kind of literature?
well, I have traveled in Africa, Arab, Europe, and Asia.
Mhm.
I have observed that there is a mindset which prevails in the whole developing world. Like I was traveling from Dubai to Somalia. I noticed
Mhm.
that there were four Goras in that plane. One Pakistani and all other was Somalians. Okay, there were five people reading books, four Goras and one from Pakistan. No one else was reading books. When I was traveling from Dubai, Pakistan to Dubai, the plane was full of Pakistanis, labor class. No one was reading books. I was traveling in villages of Sharjah. I noticed that there were no libraries. And
Mhm.
people there had the same mindset the Pakistanis have today. They don't
Mhm.
believe in the power of books. They don't believe in the power of thoughts, new ideas. So,
So until we have a role model or someone who can start an initiative, like you have already starting this 100,000 libraries initiative, I don't think we will reach anywhere. And then you also had mentioned that our justice system, and you are also a lawyer, and you understand the role of the judiciary system in society. So there seems to be a lot of intelligent people, youth in Pakistan, or a lot of educated youth, especially in cities like Islamabad, Lahore, and bigger cities. They are a lot of well-educated children here. However, none of these youth actually trust the justice system or the police or the politicians or what anyone has ever and anyone has anything to say ever, and which makes it seem as if maybe our justice system of their country is at fault or perhaps even falling apart. I'd like to quote Sir Winston Churchill from the Second World War. When the German Air Force was completely destroying London, Hitler was, targeting London from every angle and creating heavy casualties, and there was an economic devastation. And the prime minister was made aware of this. He just simply asked, "Are the courts functioning?" And when the judges were, and then he was told that the judges are dispensing justice just as normal. He replied, "Well, thank God, if the courts are working, then nothing can go wrong." So, what do you feel that what kind of education we can give our youth to help understand even the importance or what kind of quality our justice system or politicians or our um, media or in police should have, and what kind of skills can they learn to perhaps make a positive change and create more trust and connectivity among our society?
Yeah, nation is always hungry for justice. So justice system and rule of law plays a very critical and important role in national development. There is no doubt, and there's no doubt that we have challenging environment to ensure justice is done within time. And yeah, but I personally see as a lawyer having exposure of 15 years in the field of law and many years in the field of police. I see that in coming decade, things will enormously change uh, because of artificial intelligence and the recent experiments made in China and many other nations. Robot judges and many other developments recently, because Pakistan has basically two challenges. Number one is the corruption in justice system and judicial system, and number two is the backlog of cases. I'm talking about the judiciary. Both of these issues will be tackled by only by the artificial use of artificial intelligence, and Pakistan has already started internet codes and many other experiments. So I can see that within a decade, we are going to make a difference in the field of justice, judiciary. But yeah, police and investigation system is a different story. There are many different and big challenges we have. But like in America, Cynthia knows better. I was reading a report by Pew Research, which is a leading fact tank in America. It says that in 2017, 75% of parents brought their kids to libraries. There were 1.5 billion visitors in public libraries in the United States. In 2012, I was going through a syllabus of 7th class in South Korea. When you go through the books published in America, in Europe, and in Korea, you will see these issues are discussed there. These are incorporated in their storybooks. Traffic management and other disciplines, 32 basic human values, all these aspects are provided in their storybooks. And what they do, they give access to books. Children read stories, and such values are stored in their subconscious mind. This is what you have to do, and this is what you are lacking. You are not giving access to. Out of 163,000 primary schools in Pakistan, only 4,000 schools have libraries, which means only 3% of total student population in your public schools have access to quality thoughts. You cannot progress if this continues. You cannot progress. So, if you, I am a student of sociology. I have studied different theories of social change and different factors which contribute towards social change. Uh, I have read many leading scholars and sociologists, including what I refer. Okay, I believe that if you want to bring a social change, you need to work on human mind. And the best age for that particular cause is the 3 to 5 years primary age. Okay, now there are hundreds of leading writers in America, hundreds of leading writers in Europe, which have shaped their minds of their children through their storybooks. Dr. Seuss, J.K. Rowling is a big name. So I believe that you need to work on your human capital by educating them, by giving them access to quality thoughts, new thoughts. especially those thoughts by which America became the superpower, by which American
Obviously.
thought was great. Library of Congress has published a list of 80 books last year, which shaped American mind. Give them access. Tell your youth about that. I trust me. I have witnessed. I have hundreds of examples in Read Pakistan. We have 20,000 students with us. Hundreds of examples we have that students came to us and told us that this book and that book changed their way of life. So a student, female student from Gujranwala, she said, I was going to commit suicide, but then I had an opportunity to attend book club in which the book Alchemist was reviewed. That changed my perception. Thanks to Read Pakistan. This was our message to me.
Obviously.
Great. Sorry, what's
Namal, I have to add one question here from Ma'am Cynthia Ritchi, as the discussion was in totally heat up, that many good examples were quoted by the Sir Farrukh Dall. So, Ma'am Cynthia, as we all know that you travel a lot and you taste every food of Pakistan, visit every city of Pakistan. So, we would like to know that how tourism can bring social change to the society. So we may move upon it. As
I'm
we have
sorry,
very less time.
I'm sorry, Zishan. She's the darling of Pakistan.
I don't know about that, Farrukh, but okay, I'll take it. Sure, why not? Totally. And also, I noticed a question from Aisha Anwar. She asked how many students read books versus Pakistani students. And I don't know, someone's got a child in the background. I can't quite hear myself over the child in the background. So I think Zishan, it may be you. I don't know. But
No.
Aisha asked, there's no child in the background. Somebody's got a child in the background. It's not me. Maybe it's another person that's dialing in. The agencies, you know, it says Ish. I don't know. Aisha actually asked two questions. She asked if we could speak at their university, and I'm sure if Aisha Anwar coordinates with Volunteer Force Pakistan, then we'd be happy to come to your university at some point. Secondly, American students, and I can speak from personal experience. Wait, am I the only one that hears the child, or does everyone else hear the child?
I hear the child as well.
Okay, good. Then I'm not going completely puggle. All right. Okay. Aisha, American students were taught to read many books, especially over the summer. I can give you my example. Every summer in school, we had a book list, and we had to read at least 5, sometimes up to 10 books per summer. Fahrenheit 451, Madeleine L'Engle's A Wrinkle in Time, Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, The Pearl, Animal Farm. I mean, the list goes on. And these were books that I read when I was in middle school. You know, imagine that. So you're talking about a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old child reading these books, which contain very mature content, subject matter, where I really question sometimes. You know, my parents had to explain things gently to me when I didn't understand certain things. But those books, like Farrukh rightly said, introduced me to new concepts. And I come from a very conservative background in the United States, in the South, very conservative. I mean, I was chaperoned on all my dates until I was 18. You know, we weren't allowed to be alone with boys. You know, we were very, very conservative background. We went to church every, week, every Sunday, sometimes more than that. So there were good things with that, and sort of not so good things with that. But it helps me today understand Pakistani society and the conservative cultures here, because I came from a conservative Western culture. So I think there's a cost benefit to all of that involved. But we had to read a lot of books, and I was introduced to a lot of new things that sometimes my parents were not comfortable with. But they, at least, I think, were grateful that they were in a position to explain these things to me, or a responsible party was able to gently guide my growing young mind. And I wasn't learning about these subject matters from someone who may be, leading me astray into an alternate lifestyle that may not have been something that my parents would have liked for me to have seen. So reading books, and I'm an avid book reader to this day. I had to step away from the tech. I love technology. I love the idea of artificial intelligence and automated intelligence, AI. I'm so excited to see what the possibilities are, but I also have concerns about a lot of the implications for this. I mean, I remember seeing on this one Twitter channel where it's about animals, and it's funny, and it shows a little stuffed dinosaur that's singing back and forth and reading a book, and it's put in a little pile of a bunch of puppies. And the puppies are sort of dancing around it and brushing themselves against it, and they see it as a sort of a life form or a creature that they are adjusting to. And initially you think it's very cute and it's funny, and it is, but the implications of this are the possibility that we are potentially going to replace human touch and human conditioning and human feelings with something that's automated, that doesn't really have the capacity to grasp what humans need at a social level, at an emotional level, at a cognitive level, at a spiritual and psychological level. And that notion of emotional intelligence that Farrukh rightly brought out, that's one of the things that needs to be really demonstrated and taught to the youth here in Pakistan. And they should be encouraged to ask questions. Whenever I speak, Zishan knows, when I've traveled with Volunteer Force Pakistan, we go to different universities, or I encourage the students to ask me. I tell them, you can ask me anything you want. Now, I may not answer everything, just to be fair, because we have to have some boundaries, and that's something that, frankly, you know, Pakistanis are not always so good at, with boundaries. So we have to establish some boundaries. But I want them to feel comfortable in asking questions. And that is simply not something that I have seen when I've studied the educational system across Pakistan. I've seen students, you know, be slapped for asking a teacher a question. And I actually remember that from some of my old days back in the day when I was in elementary school, because if you went to a very Southern or conservative teacher, if you asked questions, that was considered disrespectful. It was confused. Curiosity is oftentimes confused with being disrespectful to one's elders. And oftentimes elders hide behind that because they don't have the answers, and they don't want to admit to the youth that they don't have the answers. And that's part of the problem. The youth should know, you are welcome, feel comfortable asking me anything. I may not have the answers. And if I don't, I will tell you, and let's research it together. Let's learn it together. To acknowledge that we don't know is a wonderful thing. And those who teach learn twice, but they don't have all the answers. Maybe they're better at getting the answers or getting something, you know, something close to an answer. But you want to encourage that curiosity and reward that curiosity with positive attention. And that's one of the things that I feel like is sadly lacking here in the Pakistani educational system.
Definitely.
Zishan, you said we're running late, so I'm trying to.
No, ma'am. I was just caring about your time, as you have come a lot of busy schedule, so that's why we need to. But you answer everything. But I'm also always there, traveling. How traveling can make positive change in society.
Did I, in all that, did I forget to answer the question? Sorry. You know, traveling for me has been one of my greatest instructors. And I have extensive graduate education. I have a Master of Education in Counseling Psychology, and my second master's program was in clinical psychology. And I went to George Washington University's Graduate School of Political Management for strategic public relations. So, I mean, I have enough education, but my best education has been traveling. And Zishan has seen a lot of this firsthand, where I get to meet people that I otherwise would never have met, who have taught me amazing lessons. Pakistan has been one of my greatest teachers, and I loved every one of my teachers from school. I can tell you every single one of their names from kindergarten because they had such a positive, wonderful impact for me. I loved every one of them except for 5th grade Mrs. Moore, and she was just a mean old lady ready to retire, honestly. But everyone else I loved. And the power that an educator has in a child's life is phenomenal. It can be a beautiful thing, even when the child is maybe going through difficult things at home or elsewhere. The school can be a savior for some children, and educators need to be trained to see these things, to tap into the vast dimension of the mind, of understanding a gifted child, an autistic child, a child who may be lagging behind for whatever reasons, and to not misdiagnose children and be so quickly to put them on medication just to sort of shut them up and make it easier for the educator. The educator needs to have emotional intelligence and to have that passion of wanting to leave a positive impact on that child. And it's going to be tough. For educators are often overworked and underpaid, and too many classrooms are filled beyond capacity to what the average instructor should or could be able to handle properly and appropriately. And so it's up to the education systems to be able to do this. And I hope that the provincial governments will take more of a proactive approach, because they should know their children better than the federal government. Just like in the United States, there's a degree of autonomy with how the states run their education systems, but there are some consistent basics so that we all have a similar education, and where someone in Louisiana is not taught something completely different from someone in California or New York. You don't want chaos in your country. You want to have a national curriculum and some things that are tailored for each province, and then have maybe each province, maybe, Balochistan has a Punjab Day, or a Gilgit-Baltistan Day, or a Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Day, or Islamabad Day, or, Kashmir Day, or Sindh Day. They should all rotate so that they can understand not only their own culture, unique cultures, whatever province that they're from, but also understand and appreciate a few things about the other cultures, and encourage dialogue and have the students ask questions. Maybe once a month, someone, even if they don't have internet, they can hire a van that comes in and provides internet services for the classrooms, for the children to be able to access and see another classroom on the other side of the country in Pakistan, and say, okay, here's students in the northern areas talking to students in Chaman, or someone in Guadarport, or someone in Karachi. You want to have that encouragement and foster a sense of belonging, camaraderie. And I think that if we had more people doing that, and we want to reward the teachers too. We want to let the teachers know that we appreciate them so much, because they're the ones that are shaping the minds for the future of this country. So teachers should be a priority in this country, and rewarding them with positive attention. And the provincial government should take the lead in that. Sorry, if I get into this, I'll talk for hours, and we don't have time for that.
No, definitely, I agree with
obviously, ma'am.
you say, especially.
Namal, please, I have to add one more thing here. Sir Farrukh Dall, लोग पूछ ही जा रहे हैं कि हमें किताबें सजेस्ट करें कि हमें स्ट्रेस को रिलीव करना है, तो स्ट्रेस को रिलीव करना है, हमें थोड़ा सा यूनिक सोचना है, हमें थोड़ा लीडरशिप स्किल एम्पावर हमें अपने आप में लानी है. तो सर, आपने तो एक चर्चा कर दिया हर जगह कि किताबें हर मसले का हल है. हालांकि वो छोटे होते कहते होते किताबें बातें करती हैं हमारा जी बहलाने की, कभी पिछले ज़माने की, कभी अगले ज़माने की. तो इस हवाले से ये भी सोशल चेंज में एक अच्छा डायनामिक है. सो अगर आप आखिर में कुछ कहना चाहें इस हवाले से, और कुछ सजेस्ट कर दें, क्योंकि लोग पूछ रहे हैं कि कौन कौन सी अच्छी किताबें. हालांकि किताबें तो बेहतरीन साथी होती हैं हर एक का, लेकिन फिर भी लोगों को गाइडेंस की जरूरत तो है.
स्ट्रेस पे उर्दू में मायूसी क्यों के नाम से एक किताब है, बहुत ही जबरदस्त किताब है. 10% हैप्पियर, डैन हैरिस की बुक है. लिबरेटेड माइंड बुक है, मुझे ऑथर का नाम याद नहीं. एक जोसेफ मर्फे की एक बुक है, पावर ऑफ योर सबकॉन्शियस माइंड. ये बड़ी ज़बरदस्त बुक हेल्प करती है स्ट्रेस पे. तो मेरे ख्याल में 2-3 किताबें ये पढ़ लेने में काफ़ी बेनिफिट हो जाएगा इसको.
और सर, एक मैसेज यूथ के लिए, हम इसको कंपाइल करें तो.
यूथ के लिए देखें, एक किताब है तालीमी कामयाबी. वो मेरा मैसेज समझ लें कि वो किताब हर नौजवान को पढ़नी चाहिए। उर्दू में, बड़ी आसान उर्दू में, प्रोफेसर अरशद जावेद पाकिस्तान के पहले हिप्नोटिस्ट हैं और बड़े रिफाइंड और एजुकेटेड पर्सन हैं। तालीमी कामयाबी के नाम से किताब है। मुझे बड़ी उम्मीद है कि ये किताब इनकी इंशाल्लाह ज़िंदगी की सिमत बदलने में बड़ा अहम किरदार अदा करेगी।
बहुत अच्छे। तो सर इंशाल्लाह मुस्तकबिल में भी आपके साथ रास्ते में रहेंगे बेहतर। और मैम नमल, आप कुछ आखिर में 2 मिनट अपनी कंक्लूजन पेश कर दें और उसके बाद मैम सिंथिया से बात कर लें, हम इसको कंपाइल करें।
थैंक यू सो मच। और बहुत अच्छे पॉइंट्स थे सबके। एंड मैम सिंथिया की हमारी कॉन्वर्सेशन बहुत लंबी जा सकती है। वी हैव सो मच टू टॉक अबाउट स्टिल। मैम Cynthia, I would like to ask you, and also Mr. Farrukh Dall, just last one question. We have a lot of skilled and intelligent overseas Pakistanis as well, a lot of youth overseas. How do you think that we can potentially help contribute to a positive society in Pakistan as well?
Cynthia?
Sorry, I think you're muted.
Ma'am, please unmute.
Yeah. So I repeat the question for me to model.
So just overseas Pakistanis, we have a lot of great, intelligent overseas Pakistanis. How can we get more people from overseas to help us in Pakistan, help educate us, or help contribute to a positive society here as well? It's mute as well. Sorry, we can't hear you. You have muted yourself.
Okay, there. Is it better? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so one of my personal experiences was actually speaking at the University of California at Santa Barbara a few years ago, and I found the students to be very receptive and very excited to be supportive of Pakistani students. And that video is actually on my Facebook Live, and I'll share it with you guys later so that you see the power of students wanting to help students, because students are, I think, in my opinion, overwhelmingly the most open-minded. They're there to learn about new ideas. And I think if more of the universities established the student, the university to university relationship, where there's an exchange program online, because that's the way of the future anyway. And of course, with COVID, who knows how long that's going to last. So we can drive a lot of this online and also encourage students to be interdependent, learn to go to a library to research subject matter, but also learn to do things in the field and also online. To be adaptive, you know, it's not the strongest man that's going to survive, it is the most adaptive. Hence why cockroaches are, you know, seemingly everywhere in some of the most adverse environments in the world. I don't think anyone likes a cockroach, but these suckers know how to survive because they're adaptive, right? And that's something that we as humans can learn. So if we have a polydisciplined approach in terms of, okay, how are students going to learn? What is the definition of learning in 2021 versus what it was, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago? Get online, get with a program, encourage dialogues between student leaders in one university with another university, but start from home. Start from home. Have universities in Balochistan connect. So I would say this should be a requirement for the governments to have each of the universities actually connect and say, and this be part of the children's curriculum, the youth curriculum. How you get 3 credit hours of national exposure at universities, you know, accredited credentialed universities in Pakistan. And perhaps you have one university sort of oversee it to ensure neutrality, to ensure consistency, that all the students are walking away with something incredibly valuable. Start from home and show these success stories about how someone from Balochistan met and made friends with someone in Sindh, in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and in Punjab, and in the northern areas, and in, you know, especially in the former Fata regions. You know, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has absorbed a massive region where a lot of these students are lucky if they even see the inside of a classroom, right? Yeah. So we have to find a way of requiring this for the students to be able to engage. And then the students will love this, and they will be the ones with the energy to help take this forward.
Yeah, more online connectivity, and that is the future. And Mr. Farrukh Dall, do you have any last points for us on this same subject?
What overseas Pakistani has recently developed a proposal for the government of Pakistan, which is based on public diplomacy, uh, which I have suggested that we can use this force to build a better image of Pakistan. And I have developed a whole model. If you are interested, I will share it with you.
Yes. Well, we'll be very interested in looking at the model for sure. Go ahead, Zishan.
Yes, obviously, really thanks to our worthy guests. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया सर आपका भी, and really thankful to Ma'am Cynthia for your kind time. So hopeful we will discuss more about this in future as well. And सर फरूख डाल बहुत शुक्रिया. मैम नमल ने हमें काफ़ी सपोर्ट किया. इंशाल्लाह जब तक हम हैं, हम इंशाल्लाह इस तरह की एक्टिविटीज़ को परफॉर्म करते रहेंगे और नौजवानों के लिए मैसेज को कन्वे करते रहेंगे. आज मैम समाबिया ताहिर ने भी हमारे साथ ज्वाइन करना था, लेकिन अनफॉर्चुनेटली उनकी आंटी कल वफात पा गई थी. तो आप सब लोगों से मेरी दरख्वास्त है कि उनके लिए खुसूसी दुआ भी कीजिए, और इंशाल्लाह जैसे ही वक्त मिला दोबारा उनसे भी रब्ता करेंगे. बाकी आज का लुबिलबाब ये कि अगर हम चाहें तो हम सब कुछ कर सकते हैं. और सर फरूख डाल ने आज के सोशल चेंज मॉडल में एक यूनिक चीज़ ऐड की, वो थी बुक रीडिंग हैबिट. सो इस चीज़ को मस्ट हमें कंसिडर करना चाहिए. और मैम सिंथिया रिची ने जो आज एक प्लस पॉइंट ऐड किया, वैसे तो एक लंबी डिस्कशन, लेकिन जो प्लस पॉइंट ऐड किया वो ये था कि ट्रैवलिंग इज़ ऑल्सो सोशल चेंज एलिमेंट. सो हमें इन चीज़ों को भी मद्देनजर रखना चाहिए, और हमें हर वक्त हर लम्हा पाकिस्तान के लिए और पाकिस्तानियों के लिए बेहतरी के लिए कोशिशें करते रहना चाहिए. सो आज का वक्त थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा हो गया, इसके लिए हम कोशिश करेंगे दोबारा कि जो अनसॉल्व्ड क्वेश्चंस रह गए हैं हम उनको भी इंशाल्लाह दोबारा रब्ता करें, और आप सब लोगों के लिए हम हाजिर हों. सो दुआओं में याद रखिएगा आप सब लोगों के लिए. और आखिर में सिर्फ हम एक ही नारा लगाते हैं, वो है पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद. रियली थैंक्सफुल टू यू ऑल. बहुत
Thank you so
शुक्रिया.
much.
थैंक यू मैम. थैंक यू सर. अल्लाह हाफिज.
Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.